I've been on a mission to create a Kodachrome JPEG recipe for Micro Four Thirds cameras. After I found this old blog post from Gareth B detailing his own Kodachrome JPEG recipe for the Olympus PEN F, I wanted to create something similar for other Micro Four Thirds mount cameras, like this Olympus EPL6. But it doesn't have the creative dial. Surely no dial, no problem, right?
Okay, big problem. Big problem.
Without this creative dial on the EPL6, we don't have the same level of customization with the color wheel and curves as the Olympus PEN F, the OM System OM3, and the Olympus EP7. Even without these additional tools, we still have an Olympus sensor, and I've always found that Olympus colors straight out of camera are very pleasing and a nice way to start editing a RAW file.
Nobody has ever said that to me, nobody.
So the goal of this video is to recreate my tweaked version of Gareth B's Kodachrome JPEG recipe for the PEN F, but in other Micro Four Thirds mount cameras, like the EPL6 and a couple of other cameras that I'm going to show you a little bit later in this video. I found this muted profile in the color picture profile settings on the EPL6. And even when first switching to this mode, I thought this was a great starting point for Kodachrome, but maybe it could use a couple of tweaks. So we're going to have picture mode as this muted profile, then contrast as +2, sharpness as -2, and saturation as -2, with gradation at normal and then white balance as cloudy. And you'll notice here that I haven't changed any specific color values because I can't change the color values. We don't have that same color wheel option like you do with the creative dial on the PEN F and other cameras. With these changes, I like the overall color profile that we've created on the back of the camera. So I thought when I went out and shot these side-by-side photos with the Olympus PEN F's JPEG recipe and then this EPL6 recipe, that I was going to see something surprisingly similar. Oh, how wrong I was. The out-of-camera JPEGs from a contrast point of view, the color profile point of view, and also the white balance, even with the same settings, just nothing was matching. So I knew I'd been barking up the wrong tree here completely. But I then thought, I can surely make a preset for the EPL6 and other Micro Four Thirds mount cameras that will match this Kodachrome JPEG recipe. So that's what we're going to do. And for the purposes of this video, to create this look in editing, we're going to do this using the sponsor of today's video, Luminar Neo. So first I've applied my basic adjustments to the exposure, contrast and color of the image to mimic the characteristics of the Kodachrome JPEG recipe, with equal values to what we had inside the creative dial. Unlike with JPEG recipes, in Luminar Neo, I can actually add some film grain to further sell the film look. Then I can use light depth to change the position, intensity, and color temperature of my light source. And if you're new to editing, you can use Luminar's AI assistant to help you get started. You can start a chat by using one of the suggested prompts, or you can ask your own question like, how can I increase color contrast in a way that resembles 35mm film. The assistant then gives you specific steps to follow, telling you which tools will be most useful for what you want to achieve. And last but not least, one of my favorite tools in this software as a 4/3 shooter, we have Noiseless, which can turn a high ISO shot from this to this. It gets rid of the unpleasant digital noise and can save you from bad exposures. Unlike other photo editing software, you can purchase Luminar Neo for a one-time payment with no subscription. This gives you access to Luminar Neo as a standalone software and as a plugin for other editing software. So use my code George10 to get a further 10% off at checkout by following the link in the description below this video. You can of course get this preset for free, which I'll explain a little bit later at the end of this video. But first I want to take a look at some example images using this preset on the EPL6 and a couple of other wildcard Micro Four Thirds mount cameras. One of them isn't technically Micro Four Thirds, but you'll understand what I mean. So starting off with the EPL6, I really like the way the preset has actually changed the images from this camera, especially with the addition of some film grain, which we couldn't add in the original JPEG recipe. We have the same muted effect on the greens in our image, along with that subtle chrome effect in the contrast of the midtones, which really makes that Kodachrome JPEG recipe pop. The good thing about using a preset over a JPEG recipe is that when our midtones and highlights do become intense or blown out, we still have the flexibility to bring these down in post, without worrying about blowing out our highlights in camera. I'm still using my in-camera muted profile on the EPL6 for shooting these images, but this preset for post-production actually just makes the overall fine-tuning of the look much easier and more consistent. If we take a look at the preset applied to the raw file of the EPL6, next to the original JPEG I had from the EPL6, and then the Kodachrome JPEG from the PEN F of the same shot, I think this preset has done a very nice job of recreating that JPEG recipe, and you can have this for free in any Micro Four Thirds mount camera. Next up, I wanted to test this on another 4/3 sensor camera, but not actually from Olympus or OM system. This one is from Lumix. This is the Lumix GM1. Yes, I finally got a Lumix GM1, and there's going to be a couple of videos coming out on this camera very soon. So subscribe if you don't want to miss those videos when they come out. Much like Olympus cameras, I think Lumix cameras are up there with some of the nicest out of camera colors, especially when it comes to a starting point for raw photo editing. And one thing I noticed in difference between the EPL6 and the GM1 when using this preset was actually the tint of the images. Even with the same white balance, I noticed a slight shift towards green in these side-by-side comparisons, which is very easy to fix in editing. It's just a small issue that I had to tweak. For these images using the GM1, I was shooting on the 20mm f1.7. You'll see a few differences in lens characteristics compared to the 17mm f2.8 that I was using on the EPL6. This last camera that we're going to test isn't technically from Olympus, it's from OM System, and this is the OM System TG7, the rugged compact camera. And of course this has the OM System Olympus menu interface and we hope color profile, but it does not have a 4/3 size sensor. I think it's a 1/2.3 inch sensor, so significantly smaller and more in compact camera territory than mirrorless territory. But hopefully we're still going to see some Olympus or OM System style colors out of camera. Hopefully. I was actually more surprised than I expected when I saw the images out of the TG7, kind of forgetting just how much smaller the sensor was. So it was a bit of a different comparison with the EPL6 and the GM1, just in terms of like lens characteristics, especially with the sensor size taken into account, like any lack of shallow depth of field, especially compared to the 20mm f1.7 on the GM1. But this also affected things like contrast and color, which made comparing the preset not as simple as I was expecting. But in editing, I definitely had to apply some additional contrast to the preset just to get a similar look to the other two cameras, as well as tweaking the tint, which had shifted even more green than the GM1 compared to the EPL6. So just with these little tweaks, I could get more of an accurate side-by-side, so you can see what this preset looks like from photos on the TG7. And don't worry, there's going to be a couple of interesting videos coming out with the TG7 very soon, including one comparison video that I've always wanted to see, and I finally get to make at the end of this month. So where can you download this Kodachrome preset? Well, I've always had free presets available via my email newsletter. You could always get my free Fujifilm preset and my free Lomography 400 preset. And now you can get the free Kodachrome preset as well. There's a link in the description for my email newsletter sign up form, or you can just head to my website and find it there. This includes a .cube file to use as a LUT inside Luminar Neo and the Mood tool, so you can apply the look very quick and easily, as well as a .dng file and a .xmp file. So you can find all of that via the links in the description, and also make sure you go check out Luminar Neo down below and use my code George10 for 10% off at checkout. And of course, if you didn't see the JPEG recipe video for the PEN F, go check that out right here. We go through Gareth B's recipe and my little tweaks that all led to the preset in this video.